Hi, and welcome to another episode of Surrendered Birth Stories. Birth stories, birth education, and the pursuit of surrendering it all to God. Let's get started. Well, hey everybody. Before I introduce our episode for today, I just wanted to pop on real quick and give you a little bit of a life update because I know in prior episodes we had talked about how we were pregnant with our fifth baby and he or she was going to be born at some point, and that we would let you know. And baby boy, was born October 9th. Actually, he came, and we had recorded several episodes ahead of time just to give me some time off after he came, so I wouldn't really have to worry about scheduling interviews or editing or anything. So I've kind of forgotten to let you know that he is in fact here, and he did in fact come, and he is now actually about, 8 weeks old? 8 weeks old. His name is Indiana, and we call him Indy. And you will eventually get to hear his birth story on the podcast, but I honestly have no idea when that will be, other than it's definitely going to be sometime in 2024. Definitely won't be here in the next month or so, but whenever I've had, a little more time to process everything and write it out, because that's what I really like to do. I like to write out the story first before I record it on here. So, but eventually I promise I will tell his story. Don't worry, nothing crazy happened. He's healthy. Everything's great. We're fine. But yeah, it's like, I feel like he was born yesterday. So I just have a little more time. I had a lot more time, between my other children's births and when I recorded them on here. So everyone's like, when are you going to share the birth story? And I'm like, wow, actually, I need some time before I will, but I promise I will. And I will make sure you all know that when that is coming out. Other than that, we've just been here. My husband just went back to work full time this week. He kind of did like a partial paternity leave where he took like a couple weeks off, and then he kind of went back part-time for a few more weeks, and now he's back full-time. We just celebrated Thanksgiving last week, and actually my kids all got sick. So we're in the middle of recovering from that. So it's been sort of we've been staying at the house and just sort of, taking some elderberry and rubbing some oils and diffusing some stuff and just trying to rest and get better. I mean, my husband and I thankfully have been totally fine. It's just been the kids, but I feel bad for them. That's probably, I would say, my very least favorite thing about being a parent is when the kids are sick, because it honestly just breaks my heart. Thankfully, it doesn't happen like super often, and thankfully, they're kind of all going through it at once right now, but it's always sad, when your kid's sick and you can't immediately, fix them and heal them 100%. So now it is the Christmas season. We have our tree up, we've got our decorations, which is really sweet. My 2-year-old, True, he comes down the stairs after every nap and after every morning when he gets up, and he points them to the living room and he says, decorations. It's like his new favorite word. So it's been super cute, but I guess it would be a lot cuter if you could hear him say it instead of me. So on that note, I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season, and we'll continue to listen to our stories. We are so happy that you do each week. So love y'all, and enjoy Sweet Emily's episode today. Today we get to hear from Emily and the stories of her daughter's births. Listen in as she tells us her desire for natural birth and how she came to the decisions of having a birth center and then home birth. I hope you're inspired as you listen in, and that God has something to speak to you through her experiences. Well, Welcome to another episode of Surrendered Birth Stories. Today I have Emily with me.
Hey.
Emily, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Emily. I'm a 26-year-old mom of two. My husband is Brandon. We've been married for 4 years. So we got right into having children. Um, we had our first when I was 23, I believe. So, I feel like I'm a young mom, but I've loved every part of it. It's really shaped me into who I am, I think. But I am also a doula. But other than that, I stay at home all the time with our girls. We live in the country, so we're all the time outside, like getting dirty. But I think I'm more of a homebody now that I've had kids, and I think I love that part of me.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so 23-year-old mom,
Yep.
let's hear that story then.
Yeah.
So how did you find out you were pregnant for the first time?
So I was actually at my sister-in-law's house. I had an inkling that I was pregnant. So I wanted to do it like as a surprise to my husband. So I bought a test and went to my sister-in-law's house, which is my husband's sister. Um, I took a test and she and her husband were right outside the bathroom door and like giggling, and I could tell how excited they were. So when I laid the test down and I saw like right away 2 lines popped up, I was so shocked. I was like, "What?" I remember specifically thinking, "There's a human growing inside me," and it was wild. But of course, I was excited. And of course, they were like banging on the door. "What does it say? What does it say?" So I told them, I was like, "I'm pretty sure I'm pregnant." So it was a thrill that like they got to be involved in that. And I think that made them feel special. Um, but we were definitely planning. So we weren't like really surprised. I think we were just a little bit surprised at how quickly we got pregnant. We were married in April of that year, and then we got pregnant in June of that year. So just a couple months, and it was quick. But yeah, I mean, we were happy with that.
So how did you tell your husband?
So it was the week of Father's Day, and I was planning on surprising him that weekend. And we actually like didn't make it to the whole weekend because I couldn't keep a secret. But I ended up just telling him one night. We were actually going through like kind of a family emergency. So I was like, this is going to be something to really like lift his spirits. So I did. I just pulled him to the side and was like, "Hey, I just think this is the best time to tell you you're going to be a dad." And he was like, "You're joking. You're joking." I said, "No, I wouldn't joke with you right now. I want this to be an encouragement to you." He was like, "Wow, I guess it is, but it was wild." So,
Oh.
yeah.
So, how did you go about finding a care provider for this first pregnancy? Did you have any like preconceived philosophies or ideas about birth, or were you going in blind?
Um, Not really blind. We had some ideas of what we wanted our birth to look like, but we didn't really know exactly who to use yet. So I had always really wanted a natural birth as much as possible. So I knew that was the route that I was going to be exploring. So I knew that there was a birth center at the time in Greensboro, Magnolia Birth Center. So we right away just like tried to get in touch with like an interview, I guess, or a consult there. And that's what we did. We loved the feel of it. We knew that really our options were limited because there aren't a lot of birth centers around us. And we didn't feel comfortable with like a home birth at that point with it being our first. So we love the atmosphere of the birth center. So we did that. That's where we had our baby. I love the idea of having midwives, and there were 2 of them there on call, so it wasn't like a plethora of people that you have to meet to try to get comfortable with. You know pretty well who is going to deliver your baby. So we liked that also about the birth center.
Awesome. Yes, we missed the fact that there was a birth center in
I know.
Greensboro
Yeah.
and no longer is. Oh, that was a sweet, what? Was it open for 2 years? 1 year?
No, I think it was open for 3, maybe 4,
Really?
I think. But yeah,
Man.
it closed down shortly after we had our baby. So we feel fortunate we got to be there. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I know it was a lot of work for those midwives because they
Yeah.
worked at another practice too and were doing hospital births
Yeah,
too.
they did. I think before it closed down, they had like 400 babies delivered.
That's a
So
lot.
yeah, they did a really great job while they were open, though.
Okay, so how was your pregnancy?
It was pretty good for the most part. I think like I'm a little bit blinded from some of the hiccups, that happened in pregnancy just because I was so excited that it was our first and I was trying to really enjoy each of my firsts, but I was definitely really sick. I remember some days driving because I worked an office job, so I had to be up early and I drove an hour one way. I remember literally pulling over on the side of the highway and throwing up. So that was kind of traumatic, but I tried to make the most of it. I lost a lot of weight, which is bad. Like you're supposed to gain weight in pregnancy, but I feel like I lost a lot. But baby and I stayed healthy through all of that. And then about around maybe 25, 28 weeks, I started feeling a little bit better. I got my appetite back and stuff like that. So I think I was able to gain weight in the end, but it definitely was not what I think you expect with pregnancy. I mean, it's not always an easy walk in the park, but it wasn't all bad.
Right. It's not like you hit second trimester and you magically feel
Yeah.
so much better.
Yeah.
Like all
it's
the
not-
books say, they're like, oh, you
Mhm.
should feel better after the first trimester. You'll
Yeah.
turn a corner.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm still throwing up,
I know.
actually.
Yeah. And that's what it was like. I just kept waiting for that 10-week mark or that 15-week mark or the 20 or whatever people say. And it just, it didn't exactly happen that way for me. But again, it wasn't all bad. It's just something that I think it definitely like works on your character because you have to still get up every single day and go to your job or take care of yourself or eat the food, even if you're going to throw it right up, just to try to take care of yourself and your baby. So I definitely think that was like a come to Jesus point in my life.
I bet. Were there any other hiccups in your pregnancy, or was that really the main
I
thing?
think that was the main thing, just as far as, of course, like myself and my baby went. All the ultrasounds, everything went really smoothly, I think.
Okay, so take us into how that first labor went. How far along were you? How did it start?
So I made it all the way to 40 weeks and 4 days, I believe. And it was a Monday. And I got up that morning and I realized that I was losing my mucus plug. And I think there was a little bit of blood in it. But I had an appointment with my midwife later that afternoon. So I was like, this is perfect. She can kind of let me know what's going on if I have more questions. I had hired a doula also, so we were really in touch a lot. And I think I had tried to educate myself, so I was pretty aware of what was going on, and I felt like I was really listening to my body well, so I felt pretty prepared. So I did. I went into my appointment that afternoon, and my midwife was like, yeah, you're definitely losing your mucus plug, and you are dilated. I think I was like a 1 or a 2 at that point. But she said, obviously, we're not going to keep you. Go home, go on about your day, rest when you can. Of course, they always tell you, rest, and you hate to hear it. But I did. So I went home, and I was cramping a little bit, but nothing real bad. And I think I have a pretty good pain tolerance. But I also, as a first-time mom, like you're in denial. Am I in labor? Am I in labor? So I just tried to ignore it as much as possible. I didn't sleep great that night. I was definitely consistently like cramping, but it wasn't real severe, nothing extreme yet. So come Tuesday, same thing. We just go through the motions of, our day. I was dealing with the cramps or contractions, I guess, at this point pretty good. But my mom came over and she was helping a little bit. I took a lot of baths. My husband was helping some too. And then Tuesday night, middle of the night, we went into the birth center because we thought, I was dilated enough to try to start having a baby soon. And the pain just got pretty severe. So I can't remember what time it was, but it was middle of the night. We got there and my midwife checked me. And I think I was at maybe like a 4 still. And the 4 is like the daunting number. I feel like it's always so hard to get past. But so we went home and I was pretty discouraged about that. And I was just exhausted at that point. But I knew that there wasn't really anything else we could do. And I was like, I'm going to have my baby here. I don't want to transfer to the hospital. So we're just going to go home. So we did. That ride back home was so uncomfortable. Just contracting in the car while you're trying to ride is just no fun. But anyway, so we got home, of course, tried to sleep some more. So Wednesday, I was like, this is the longest thing of my entire life. And things definitely started getting more intense as the day went on. And once supper time came, I was really contracting pretty good. They were close together. They were longer. They were much more intense. And I remember my doula calling me on the phone, and she was listening to my contractions, and she was saying, if you're starting to feel any pressure like in your butt, kind of feeling like you have to have a bowel movement, then that's really notable. And that's maybe something to let your midwife know too, that like, okay, this might be more serious. So very shortly after she told me that, I started feeling that pressure kind of like on my tailbone. And I was like, this is different. This is definitely different. So we had literally just ordered some takeout. And before we were able to go get it, we had to leave the house to go have a baby. So we did. We left, and it was dark at this point. It was probably 6 or 7 p.m. And my husband was just flying down the highway. I remember specifically remembering, like, this is so crazy. But I was not really aware of anything else except just breathing and, like, myself, what I was going through. So it was just a wild experience to be so closed off. So I remember, too, we were listening to worship music on the way. I had made, like, a worship playlist for labor. And I just remember, like, sobbing. I was so emotional that whole way. And I remember hearing my mom was in the car with us. She was crying. I even think I heard my husband crying. So it was just like a really sweet, emotional time.
So you weren't crying from pain?
No, I don't think I was crying from pain. I think I was crying just because I was like, this is happening. We're here, you know? At that point, I really don't remember the pain as much. I just remember, like, preparing myself mentally and emotionally. Like, we're about to have our baby, you know? I've waited all this time. I can't wait. I think some of that was a little bit of fear, you know? Maybe fear of the unknown. I think everybody experiences that. But I think mostly just, like, excitement, all the adrenaline, you know? So we got to the birth center, and my midwife checked me, and sure enough, you know, I was, of course, not complete, but I was ready enough to stay there. So I think I was 6 or 7 centimeters, and she said, we can go ahead and break your water, and it'll progress you quicker if you would like. And I agreed to that. So she did. She broke my water, and my doula was there. She was setting up the birth tub and filling it up with water. So I just was able to kind of manage with some pain. And my husband and my mom were there, of course, helping me still too. We actually had a large birth team. My grandma was there and my sister were there too.
Oh, wow.
So my midwife said that was the largest amount of, like, people in the room that I think they ever had there. So I was like, good, we made a record of something. But so then I got in the water, and I want to say it was maybe about 8 or 8:30 p.m. And I could definitely tell the difference in contractions after they broke my water, which I was so thankful I was able to get in the hot water of the birth tub after that, because it was a huge relief. And not too much longer, I started feeling the urge to push. So I did. I started pushing, and she came maybe 10 or 15 minutes later. So I didn't push that long, but she was born about 10 p.m. and on Wednesday night in February. So it was an absolute rush. I think the best way I can describe that experience is like euphoric, just experiencing it for the first time, because it's kind of like an out-of-body experience, dealing with the pain and everything. But then when you meet your baby, literally nothing else matters. Your mind is not thinking about anything else. Your eyes are not looking at anything else. You're just literally holding your baby, smelling your baby, touching your baby, all the things. And of course, my husband was there, and a lot of our family surrounding us. So I got to sit in the bathtub with her for a few minutes, and then we had to get out because I started bleeding a bit. And my midwife wanted to make sure that it wasn't anything real severe. So we got out, and I was able to lay on a bed, and I was pretty comfortable. And of course, they gave me my baby to distract me from whatever they had to do to clean up. I did tear, so my midwife was stitching me. But again, like, none of that really seemed to matter because I was so taken up with my baby that all of those little details seemed to just be very minor. But the bleeding wasn't severe. She just wanted to be able to check on everything, and I delivered my placenta pretty shortly after, and she got me stitched up, and that was everything seemed smooth. We had a nurse that was there, and she was able to check, like, vitals and everything for about 4 hours, and everything just got quiet again, and a lot of our family left, which was really sweet, for other family to come in, grandparents to meet our baby and then kind of leave and let us be to ourselves. And then after they all left, we stayed for a couple more hours, and then they released us, and we went home in the middle of the night, which was wild, but I was ready. I was ready to go home. It was an uncomfortable ride home after having a baby and being stitched up, but I was really thankful to be going home with my baby. It was just so sweet.
So that sounds blissful for your first, other than the really long early labor, which I always tell my clients, I'm like, early labor can last for days.
Yeah.
So prepare yourself.
Yeah. I think that was probably the hardest part of it for me, because once I was in active labor, it seemed really quick.
Yeah.
And of course, the pain was more intense. But really, if I would give like advice to anybody, it's just really mentally prepare yourself for a possible long early labor, especially for first time moms. But it's a mental game just because you aren't progressing really quickly. You might not, but it is still labor, so it's not necessarily going to stop. So don't like be discouraged about it. So it's a mental game.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was your postpartum like with her?
So postpartum was, I feel like it was fine, but I also feel like I have a really optimistic outlook on things. And I feel like I try to be tougher maybe than I am. So some of it was kind of ugly, messy because I did tear, so I had stitches. And I think sitting on my bottom was a lot more uncomfortable because of that. Peeing was a little bit more uncomfortable. But for the most part, everything healed really well and it was fine. And I managed okay. I had a lot of back labor. So I remember my back specifically like that next morning. I was like, why does my back feel bruised? And a lot of people were like massaging my low back. And I think that's probably what some of that was from. But other than that, like the first couple days were pretty uncomfortable, but nothing that like ruined having babies for me, I guess. And of course, we didn't sleep a lot, but nobody does. But after the first couple days, everything seemed a whole lot easier. We had a lot of family, a lot of friends coming over, giving food and just loving on us. And I'm the kind of mom, I'm like, hold my baby if you want to, hold my baby, So it gave me a little bit of a break. And I think I was thankful for that. But we were definitely also kind of thankful when you're long enough in postpartum where the excitement kind of slows down and people aren't all in your house. But that was an emotional time for me because I thrive off of like community and social events. And I think when everyone started, like the commotion started dying down, it started making me feel lonely. And my mom stayed with us for a few days, I think. And then my husband went back to work, so it all was very like anticlimactic. And it left me feeling kind of lonely and emotional. So I would definitely like recommend for somebody to just be aware of that. I think postpartum is not the hardest in the first 2 days. I think it sometimes can be harder in the weeks and months following when reality starts to kind of come back, and you're not in that like blissful first few days. It's still blissful. There can still be blissful moments, of course, but I think just be aware of those like lingering months and weeks afterwards that kind of creep up and can be intimidating. Just dealing with real life, I guess, at that point. So
yes, I've experienced similar things to that as well. I'm also very social.
yeah.
So how do you feel like that whole experience beginning to end really affected your faith or your relationship with Jesus? Did you have to lean on him more during that time, or it just affects us all differently?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I definitely think I grew. During pregnancy, I definitely think I was really hard on myself. I was like, I'm not spiritually ready to have a baby. I'm not spiritually ready to be a mother. But I just felt so much of God's grace on me, like reminding me that it's okay. Like, even once you have a baby, you're not going to have this figured out. Like, lean on me, lean on me. And so I just felt really like an overpouring of grace while I was pregnant. And then going through postpartum, feeling more of that just because I'm not equipped. I mean, he equipped me, of course, but we're not perfect at this. We're never going to be. And just seeing how close I think it brought me to him after becoming a mother, because we'll never fully understand Jesus' love for us. But I think becoming a parent, becoming a mother is maybe the closest we would ever be to, his love for us. And I think that's been a really cool realization for me. And it's definitely brought me closer to Jesus and definitely just my trust in him, because as a parent, you can literally worry every second of your life for your baby. And you can't. You can't have full control of them. We're borrowing them. So it definitely has worked on my trust in the Lord as well. So
I like that you said that. We're borrowing them because they are his children that he's
absolutely
blessed us with to take care of. That gave me goosebumps.
I know.
So how long after you had your first did you guys decide to have your second? Or did you decide?
Yes. So we did. They're like 2.5 years apart, just right about that. And we knew that we wanted to do maybe between 2 and 3 years. So the 2.5 mark was like, all right, this is perfect. We also knew from our first experience that there's a potential that I could get pregnant really quickly. So we didn't try for too many months, and then we got pregnant. And she was born in September of 2022. So she's 10 months old. So I think I'm out of like the postpartum phase, you could maybe say.
Yeah.
But her birth story is still, of course, just as fresh as ever, you know.
So did you do anything differently in this pregnancy?
A few things, yes. I wasn't quite as sick, so I think that I took care of myself better, like my nutrition. I tried to be more conscious of that. Um, I also tried to be more conscious of giving myself rest because I had a toddler to keep up with too. So that was a challenge for sure. But I just leaned on my husband a lot for a lot of help with that. And he was very gracious, of course, to help. But we also had a home birth with our second. So some of my like prenatal care looked a little bit different, which home birth care is a little bit more hands off. And that was, I think, different for me. But in the end, I think I was really thankful for it because I've done this before. You know, I kind of knew what to expect. And my midwife was just able to trust me and, you know, taking care of myself and my instincts. And, you know, she was there if I had needed help or questions. But I think it was nice to be able to just kind of take care of myself, you know, and not have someone like manage my pregnancy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So was there something that instigated choosing a home birth the second time?
Yes. So I've dreamed about having home birth probably since I was a little girl. And we felt really confident doing it since we had a relatively smooth birth with our first and we kind of knew what to expect. Also, my husband didn't really have much of a choice. No, he did. I'm joking. But I was definitely the one that he was like, it's your call. You know, you're the one doing this. If you think you can, then I trust you. I'm behind you on this. So, but I definitely think that having a supportive team, whether that be family, whether it be doula, whoever you're going to have, like I think it plays a huge part. You know, you need to be prepared. You need to know what you're getting yourself into to choose a home birth. So I definitely felt really prepared for it, I guess, with our birth team.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming by that point, the birth center in Greensboro was closed.
Yes, it was. So we were bummed about that, but I think that was another reason that kind of pushed us to have a home birth.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you know what? After COVID and everything happened, hospitals seemed a bit crazier, and I didn't really want a hospital birth. And there were no birth centers anywhere near us. And I said, this is definitely, you know, gives me more peace and confirmation that this is what I want to do for our second birth. So.
Okay, so better pregnancy this time around, which is awesome. I feel like mine have all gotten worse.
Really?
But,
oh, no, I'm
well,
sorry.
I don't know. Maybe just an age thing, but because I'm like 10 years older than you.
Oh.
But it's okay. Okay, so we get to the end of pregnancy,
Yes.
and how far along are we when things get started?
Yeah, so it was really similar. I was 40 weeks and 6 days, actually. So I went a little bit longer, and I was, again, you know, the mental game was playing on me because I was like, second babies are supposed to come early, you know, and it was summertime. I was going through the summer being pregnant, and I was exhausted. I was hot all the time, and my body was just so achy. I was like, this needs to be over. But again, you know, I just trusted the natural process. I knew that she would come when she was ready. So I was 40 weeks and 6 days and just going about life like normal. You know, we weren't going out of town or anything far away, but we were just whatever, running errands, staying at the house, whatever we needed to do. And we were at a softball game actually in town, which is maybe 35, 40 minutes from our house. And my husband plays men's softball. And we were at the game, and we didn't have our toddler. I can't remember. Somebody was keeping her for us, and which was perfect. But I started cramping that day, and I think I started losing my mucus plug. So again, it started happening very, very much the same. And I was like, okay, this is familiar. This is probably labor. So I was pretty crampy that afternoon. And my husband was like, don't come to my game, just stay home. I was like, no, I don't want to sit at home by myself. I want to get out of the house, distract myself. And I contacted my midwife, let her know, and she was like, "Yeah, you're fine. Go about your life. You're not in like active labor, so no reason to just sit at home." So she also told me that my body would probably relax more once we got home, and sometimes that can help labor progress. And so we stayed at the softball game until about 8 p.m., and I was really uncomfortable at this time. And walking out, I remember specifically I was cramping or contracting, I guess, so much at that point. It was really hard to walk. And we got in the car, and I told my husband, I was like, we need to hurry home because, we were setting up the birth tub too. And, I just wanted to prepare the house. I knew that labor was happening. So he did. He rushed home. We started calling everybody, texting, because again, I had my mom there and my grandma came over to help with our toddler. And so we got home and my midwife said, okay, I can come to your house or I can go home. She doesn't live too far from me, which is convenient. And she said, I can come check you now or I can go home and you just call me when you're ready. And I said, would you come check me now? Because, I'm feeling like this is pretty intense already. So at this point, I'm just kind of laying in our bed trying to rest. So she comes over and she checks me, and I think I was at 6 centimeters, 6 or 7. So she said, that's great. You're going to be there really soon. So I'm going to stay. So she did. My doula was there. My doula actually worked as a birth assistant with our home birth. So the atmosphere was a little bit different. I didn't need as much hands-on help from really anybody but my husband. And my mom helped a lot too, just with like some back massage and counter pressure. But it was really nice getting to labor in our home. And this was, nighttime. So it seemed perfect that it was quiet. We didn't have to worry about anybody else trying to come in and bother us. The lights were dim since it was dark outside. So it was just a really peaceful atmosphere. And I labored on our toilet some. And we have a squatty potty. And so with my feet up, like my knees up, it was so uncomfortable. I hated that position, but I know that it's good for labor. So I did that for a while. I labored on our birth ball for a while. Had some people massaging my back. We had worship music playing again. So a lot of the things were very similar. And then when the birth tub got ready, I got right in the water. And very shortly after I got in, I started pushing. And on the first push, my water broke. And I really was thankful I got to experience that breaking on its own this time. That was something I wanted to experience differently. So I thought that was really neat. And it definitely felt like a burst, like a gush of water. So I was in the bathtub for maybe 30 minutes before our baby was born. So I didn't labor for near as long. I probably had about 4.5 hours of active labor, they said. And I think because of how quickly it went, the pain was a little bit more intense. But the pushing again was very quick and a little bit of a bigger baby. So I could tell, I think the pushing pain was a little bit harder. But yeah, I probably pushed like 4, 5, 6 times maybe. And she was out. I tore again, so I had to have stitches. But this time I was able to stay in the water for probably 10 or 15 minutes, just holding my baby, leaving her cord attached for a little bit longer, which was just really sweet that there was no rushing of anything. You just got to we got to soak in that moment. And so my husband cut the cord, and then he took our baby to the bed, and they got to do skin to skin for the first time. And then I delivered my placenta, and of course we moved to the bed, and then my midwife stitched me up. They stayed for just a few hours after that to help, make sure our vitals and everything were fine and kind of help cleaned up some. And then they left, and, very same situation from our first, except we didn't have to leave. We didn't have to travel home. And I loved that. I loved how seamless that was and just how peaceful, I guess, and intimate. And so we slept just a few hours before morning time came, and our toddler got up and got to come meet her little sister.
So she was, you said 2.5 when her sister was born.
Mm-hmm.
How did she react to having a sister?
It was precious. She loves baby dolls and all that. And I think she was old enough to kind of understand the idea of having a baby. But until she actually got to meet her, I don't think they really fully understand what is going to happen. But she just got right up on the bed and, of course, wanted to kiss her and hug her and love her. And her eyes just looked like, a child on Christmas morning.
Yeah.
So it was really precious. I had imagined having her there for our birth, but it was actually her bedtime around when we were having our baby. So I think it worked perfect for her to be in bed it wasn't a distraction for me or anything like that. And the house was pretty quiet. So I think she slept fine through it all.
Yeah.
But
Oh. So what was your postpartum like that time around?
so postpartum was pretty similar. Again, because I tore and having the stitches, that's kind of uncomfortable for a few days. But I think that having another child and with it being my second, I was a lot more capable of doing things. And I kind of pushed myself to do things more. And sometimes I look back on that and I'm like, I should have rested more. I should have taken more time. But I don't sit still for a long time very well. Like, I want to be up, I want to be moving. And I think if that's good for somebody, then I think that's okay. But definitely pace yourself. So I did. I had to pace myself. But again, we had a lot of family, a lot of friends bringing meals and things. So that helped. I didn't have to focus on like busy work. But I did. I just tried to listen to my body. But I think I healed pretty quickly. And I didn't really have any reason to milk postpartum, I guess. And then as far as like the emotional side of it, I definitely fared a lot easier this time because I was aware of what could potentially happen. And I tried to keep friends and family close. And my husband actually had more time off of work this time. So I think that was really the catalyst that made this postpartum experience better, that he was home with me for a longer period of time.
Yeah. So how long was he with you the first time versus the second time?
So
If you can remember.
Yeah, our first, he literally got to take like 3 days off. It was rough. It was really rough. And then with our second, he was off for 2 weeks.
Oh,
So,
nice.
and 2 weeks is still kind of a short amount of time to some
Yeah.
people, but to me, going from our first experience, I was like, this is amazing, you know.
Yeah.
So I think by the time he went back, I felt really good and I was okay with him going back, you know. And of course, he was still there every night. And I think he was ready to get back to work at that point too, just because he doesn't identify with our home, you know, like I do.
Yeah.
So it was a smooth transition.
That's good. I know. I hear
Yeah.
sometimes people's husbands now get like 6 weeks off or sometimes
know.
even 12 weeks off. And I'm
Mhm.
like, wow, I know my husband is in the right job for him, but I'm like, that sounds like a really nice
I
paternity
know.
leave.
I wish. My husband might not love that though. He enjoys his job, you know, and he enjoys having that routine. So
Yeah.
who knows? But I would enjoy it, I think.
I would enjoy it with the
Yeah.
extra. I think, well, and maybe not even the first time around as much as when you have other children to take care of. So you
Mhm.
can kind of rest more
Oh,
and
yeah.
soak in
Mm-hmm.
the newborn phase more and
Yeah.
all of that. But
Yeah. I would say that was the one tricky part of postpartum this time around, the second time around, was that I felt like I might not have gotten to soak in the newborn phase as well. I did. It just seemed like it went by so fast because I had a toddler to kind of keep up with as well. So it's a sweet experience to experience the newborn phase and having a toddler kind of experiencing having a sibling, but it went by much faster.
Yeah.
So I feel like I would do it over again and again and again to just experience those first few days and how fleeting the time was.
oh, yeah, definitely. And I feel like with each kid, it goes faster
Oh yeah,
and faster
it does.
and faster
Mm-hmm.
because they're all growing and they're all, it's a lot. But,
Yeah.
okay, so experience it again and again and again. Does that mean you guys plan on having more children?
Well, so we originally wanted 3 or 4, and I think like an even number sounded really good to us. But then we were like, I don't know, like a family of 5 sounds more doable than a family of 6. So maybe we'll stop at 3. So we'll just see. But after having our second daughter, we absolutely love the dynamic of 4 of us, and we feel very content with 2 girls. We always thought we wanted to try for a son, and I still would love to give my husband a son, but at this point, we're still very content, and we're leaving it up to the Lord. Of course, we're not closing any doors. We just want to have peace in whatever phase of life we're in as we pray about it, and currently we have peace about not trying yet. You know, again, that could change 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road. We could
Yeah.
miss the baby phase, you know, all of that. We could miss the euphoric experience of birth. I could. My husband, it's not as euphoric for him, of course, but I do. I think about that a lot, and I miss that birth experience.
Yeah.
So parts of me wants to experience that again, but as of right now, I still feel really content with 2. So we will see.
You're in your mid-20s too. So you've got plenty of time.
Yeah.
I've seen people come back, like have the two close together and then
Mhm.
their third, like 7 or 8 years later when
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I actually do want a third.
I know. Yeah. And that's kind of what we've talked about as well. Just if we do maybe wait 4 or 5 years and have a little bit of an age gap, we just want to experience more of our marriage and get to know each other more
Oh, yeah.
before maybe adding any more children to the mix.
Right. Because how long did y'all date before you got married?
So dating and then being engaged, we were together 1.5 years before we got married. So everything happened pretty quick. Yeah.
So you're almost like still getting to know each
Oh,
other
yeah.
through your first pregnancy and
Oh,
through
yeah.
becoming parents.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
But I
I-
think it's wild. It definitely grows your marriage,
Yeah.
having to learn each other while you're learning children and having children and throwing them into the mix. But it can definitely add some challenges, which, again, if you work through those well and you keep the Lord in the center of it, then you definitely will come out stronger. And I feel like we've been married a very long time at this point.
4 years, a very
Yeah.
long time. That is a very long time. Some people don't make it to 4 years.
That's true.
So,
Yeah.
well, thank you for
Yeah.
coming today and sharing with us.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Thanks again for joining us today. Be sure not to miss an episode by hitting subscribe. Also, we'd love for you to leave a review of the show so that more people like you can hear more stories like these. If you're local to the Triad of North Carolina and seeking childbirth classes, birth consultations, or a birth doula, please click on the link in the show notes to take you to our website for more information. Just as a reminder, this show is not giving medical advice, so please continue to see your personal care provider as needs arise. Also, if you would like to be a guest on the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, please click the link in the episode show notes to get in touch with me. We hope you have a great week, and remember, learn all that you can, make the best plans, and then leave it in God's hands.